Good morning, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects. How are you all today? This week, prior to the holidays, we're here almost every day. We've been trying to help you by answering any type of cloud architect questions you have, so that over the holidays, we know there's going to be lots of conversations with your family, and people are going to ask what you're doing or what you're thinking, and we want you to have the best answers for them and the best plan, of course. So we're here to talk about cloud architect careers. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Gibbs, and I've been working in tech now for 25 years, and I've loved every last minute of it. And I've been coaching or mentoring others in technology to get their first tech job and get promoted in tech for about 2 decades now. And it's the greatest thing in the world when somebody says, I just got cloud hired. So we're here to talk about any type of cloud architect career questions, whether you desire to be a cloud engineer or a cloud architect or a solutions architect or a cloud solutions architect or an enterprise architect or even a business architect. These are the kind of careers we love to talk about because it's our world. So as a career advising firm, and a career education firm, that is why we're here to answer any questions that you have. Malin, good morning. It's so nice to see you. I see your posted question, why only AWS? Don't know if you're still here, and I don't know the nature of the question, but we do all clouds, not just a single cloud, and all organizations should never be on a single cloud. Melinda, single cloud is a single point of failure. Same way we would never build a network with just AT&T or just Verizon or just Vodafone or just any one single provider, because providers have problems. We would share it to multiple providers. In general, when we recommend an architecture, it's across multiple clouds for the same reason. But so bring any questions that you may have, Melinda. We're thrilled to have you here. But the point of today's session and the point of these question and answer sessions is to really just be out there to help you build your best cloud architect or solution architect career. So for those of you that are out there, welcome. I just want you to have these best cloud architect and solution architect careers. And here's the thing, it doesn't matter where they're at. If you build your career on the fundamentals properly, you'll be able to work anywhere, anytime. I say this all the time, and people say, Mike, which cloud do I learn? Do I learn AWS or do I learn Azure? And I say, learn the cloud. Don't learn any of the specific ones. And they say, what do you mean, Mike? And I say, look, when you learn to drive your car, did you learn how to drive a Honda and then have to go to a special school to learn how to drive a Toyota, and then a special school to learn how to drive a BMW, and then a special school to drive a Mercedes? Of course not. That's ridiculous. You learn how to drive. You learn what the steering wheel does. You know where the gear shift is. You learn the turning signals. You learn how to turn on the lights and off, the accelerator, the brake. You know how to drive. So when we're talking about building a cloud career, we're not talking about, learning AWS and then, oh, let me learn Azure. No, they're the same. They're a cloud. What is a cloud? A cloud is a network and a data center that's been virtualized, and it's the same in every cloud. They're literally speaking, they're all the same. So if you truly know in your heart what a virtual machine is, it doesn't matter whether it's something on Google Compute Engine, whether it's an Azure virtual machine or an AWS EC2 instance. So, for that question, why only AWS? It can't just be AWS. It's got to be the cloud. So that's where people struggle. They learn an EC2 instance and then they want to go to Google and they don't really know what an EC2 instance is because they've never studied the data center tech of the virtualization. And then they got to go memorize Compute Engine. And it's impossible to memorize all these things. I mean, you can do it to pass an exam, but it's not enough to be able to do the job. And these are the reasons that organizations are looking for a certain set of skills. So learn the cloud and you'll be fantastic. So that's why, for example, we don't just do a single cloud. We do multiple clouds. So, Melissa, good morning. It's so happy to see you. Happy holidays. It's always great to see you, Melissa. I saw one of these comments that you put on a YouTube video, and wow, it was so thought out, and I so appreciated it. So, Melissa, it is wonderful to see you. Does anybody in the group have some questions? The whole reason we're here is to help answer your career questions. So please let me know. New Tech Newbie. Hey, Mike. I'm completely new to cloud. Welcome. And I'm trying to determine what area of cloud architecture to focus on to become an expert. Can I shed some light on your top 3 suggested areas? Absolutely, I'd be happy to, New Tech Techie. So the first thing is, when you come to the cloud and want to be a cloud architect, first make sure you understand, New Tech Techie, what the architect role is. And that means we are systems designers. We are not builders, we are actually system designers. Meaning we start with a client. And the reason I'm telling you this is I want to make sure we define these architecture roles for you and the places that I think are best. So we start with the client. We ask that client, just like we would do in management consulting, just like we would do in medicine, nothing changes. And we're going to ask that client about their business goals, the things they're trying to do, what are they trying to achieve? And then we go back to and put on our thinking caps. And then we think, okay, they said they want to increase sales. What can we do to increase revenue? Is it a new website that we can do, for example? Is there a CRM application that can get the business closer to its customer? Whatever that is, new techie. And then we design an architecture, which is an end-to-end solution required on all the technology. And it's going to be network technology, security technology, storage technology, compute technology. It could be things from RFID tagging and things that are way, way, way outside of the cloud. It's all the tech that really makes an organization better. So the cloud is the infrastructure for the tech or where you store the applications. So there's that. Now, where should you focus? Now, this is another story. As a rule, if you become a very good cloud architect and just become a generalist cloud architect, and what I mean by a generalist cloud architect is not an architect that studied things like SysOps or DevOps that are not architecture skill. I mean a generic architect, which would be someone that's got a lot of expertise of the network and the data center. That's a wonderful, 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 wonderful place to build a good career. Now, you could be a specialist in end-to-end architecture, which is still a specialist. And those architects have to be generalists, but they can be generalists and they're still very, very well paid because they're still architects. And what is the architect specialty? System design and business transformation. So just keep that in mind, that it's totally fine to be a generic architect. Incredible demand for this. Now, if you want to be a little more of a specialist, and I generally recommend specializations, then you actually have a couple of places where you can do it. So you can play on the business acumen side or on the tech side, and they both have their advantages, and I'll describe both. New techie, if you wanted to work, for example, is a technology professional, more on the tech side, you could study security. And I would say studying cloud and studying security is going to be by far one of your best options. Here's the reason. The more tech that goes online, the more things are open to hacking. So security becomes a really, really critical thing. So I would say cloud security is a great area of focus. I would also say that cloud networking is another great area of focus. And here's the thing, there's very few of us in the entire world that understand networking. And I've been a network engineer forever. And I got to tell you, I've interviewed a lot of people for network engineering jobs, and it's almost impossible to find someone that truly understands networking. So if you can develop that CCNP to CCIE level networking experience, plus that cloud architect background are really solid, and you focus on cloud networking, you're quite good. Now, there's another type of architect that I see a lot of, and I actually have a student or a couple of students from this background, some that have worked in this background that are all now working as cloud architects, but also some of them working as cloud architects with a big data focus. So there's the concept of the big data architect, and the big data architect is really going to be a position of the future. The more clickstream information we get, and the more streaming information, can we do anything with that to make better business decisions in real time? Absolutely. Things like Apache Kafka are used for that. Of course, Amazon Kinesis is that, but Kafka would be the standard you could use on all your environments. So, those kind of things are great. The ability to create data lakes and mine that data, use machine learning tools. So I see the big data architect well. Now, new techie. Those are my three places to focus on tech. Now, that's not necessarily the way I would go. And I would say those three places are really great, and I think it's great. Now, there are other ways to specialize your career. So, for example, in most of my career, I'd say half of it, I was Mr. BGP. I was running around the world consulting on BGP, and I loved it. And it took really good care of me. It was a great, great thing. And then when I worked at Cisco said, hey, we want a healthcare team. We're going to go for the healthcare industry. And I said, you're going to care about the healthcare industry? I'm in. Ding, 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 ding. I'm a nurse practitioner, used to practice internal medicine. I went and applied for a job that was a couple levels in the company better than the one I had. And because I was an industry expert, because I could practice medicine, and I'd worked in that environment, meaning I knew the workflows in the hospital, and I knew the hospital's budgetary problems, the leadership problems, I was an expert on healthcare. And oh wait, I still was an expert in tech because I've been doing it for about 15 years. So when I shift from healthcare tech from tech to pure healthcare tech, my career was like a rocket ship. And why was a rocket ship? Because I could go connect to the chief information officer, the chief executive officer, the chief medical informatics officer, the chief nursing officer, the chief nursing informatics officers at the hospitals in a moment's notice. I'd go in there and say, I'm one of you. And I was. And then they would say, okay, since you're one of us, here are all our problems. And I'd say exactly what I expected, because I did. I expected them. And we'd work together and we'd design a solution together. And the customer always wanted it. And why, new techie? The reason the customer always wanted it is because they knew I was one of them and I had industry expertise. So study the banking industry and become an expert of financial tech, fintech, and be a great architect. And that's another thing. Focus on the healthcare industry, although I don't generally recommend the healthcare industry because it's one of the lower budget industries, so it tends to pay less, but it's important to me because I care about healthcare. So that's one of those industries. And if you're passionate about healthcare, it's a great industry. But, global retailers all have a certain set of needs. And if you're good at those things, again, it's good. So you can do it either security, networking. I also believe in big data, but that's not my specialty. But I definitely can tell you there's lots of great opportunities in the cloud networking and cloud security space, but there's also exceptionally good options when you focus on the industry vertical itself, because real industry knowledge improves your ability to transform an organization with technology, which makes you much, much, much more valuable. So new techie, these would be the ways that I would actually plan my career. And those would be the ways that I actually ran my career. And if you've got more questions, please feel free to answer them. We love answering questions. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. And please, by all means, ask any questions you have. Sandy, so good to see you. Good morning. Any recommended conferences we should go to as we begin our journey? Just started the program last night, really excited. So Sandy, I'd say anytime you can go to vendor training, meaning if AWS is going to do their training, go attend it. If Azure is doing some free training, go attend it. If Google's doing some free training, go attend it. When Cisco's doing some free training, go attend it. When Palo Alto is doing some free training, do it. So here's the key. I like to go to all the training performed by the vendors themselves. So the reason I go straight to the vendors is it's their tech. They know their tech better than anybody else. So instead of buying, something that somebody studied what the vendor told them and then they recreated it, I go straight to the vendors. So sure, I recommend the conferences you go to are free, or the free ones. AWS has an invent one or a reinvent one that comes out periodically and it's free. I'd go to as many of those sessions as you can. Go to sessions from Google, go to sessions from Cisco, and they're constantly getting on the mailing list. Those sessions will be really, really great, building your technology acumen. And see, here's the thing, Sandy, when you go to the Checkpoint one, and you go to the Palo Alto one, and you go to the Cisco one, and you go to the Fortinet one, and then you go to the F5 one and the VMwares, then you're going to really get the feel of cloud architecture. See, it's not like it's not like a certification exam where we're going to design our systems and, oh, wait, we need a firewall. Wow. Oh, yeah, for DDoS, we're going to use Shield, and that's it. We're done. It's not going to be like that. These are good tools, and I don't want you to think they're not. But, we might be using custom load balancers from F5 that we're going to load balance with an elastic load balancer. That's pretty common. And we're going to go to the marketplace for virtual firewalls because we need those kind of features and functionalities. And we're going to be doing load balancers to load balance them. And we might need to be using network load balancers to load balance application load balancers because we need the speed and throughput of a network load balancer, but we need the intelligence of an application load balancer. And all that stuff you'll never find in the AWS certification training. But you know where you will find it? All those third-party vendors that are going to be running that free training, because that's what's necessary to work around the limitations of the cloud to make the cloud feel much more like the network and the data center, which offers incredible performance and capabilities. So, Sandy, thrilled to have you in the program. And what I would say is start focusing on those things. But if you just do what's in the program, there's 500 hours of training in that program. Do the required reading, show up for classes, and do the things. You are going to be in great shape. And one more thing that I can recommend, Sandy, here's the difference between someone that's really, really, really successful and someone that's spending some time. When we go through our classes, and our next class will be Tuesday because, obviously Friday is a holiday this week. But, when you go to the next class on Tuesday, when we talk about something in an architecture and you don't know what it is, ask a question. And if for some reason we didn't have time, go research it. Whatever it is that you ask a question, we'll answer it. And then go research that one topic that night and master whatever that one thing is that you didn't know. And then each day you're going to get better. So Sandy, the key is to get better every single day. Whatever it is you do, I don't care if it's martial arts, I don't care if it's yoga, and I don't care if it's your career. Always work to get 1% better each day. Do that and everything's good. So Sandy, super excited to work with you. You're going to do absolutely great. So hope I answered your question, and please feel free to ask more. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question, please by all means ask questions. That's why we're here, to do anything we can to help you. Isana Wana Commanda. What a neat name. Good morning. I want to join your class. When is the next starting date? Actually, Asana, I'll give you a complete answer, but then starting date is actually today. And here's the thing. I want you to understand how we actually run our courses, Asana. So what we do is we have classes twice per week that are live training. And what I mean by live training is we all get together on Zoom, and it'll be like a real architecture project that would happen in a real business, where you're going to start with the client. You're going to ask the client a lot of questions. You're going to ask the client about their business. You're going to ask the client about their business goals, their business pain points, their challenge, their legal environment, their regulatory environment, et cetera, twice per week. And then what's going to happen, Asana, is the students will start asking questions, and together we'll come up with an architecture, which of course I lead. Now, and then the students ask questions. So Asana, this happens twice per week. Now, here's the thing. The way you design an architecture today versus the way you design an architecture a year from now is pretty much the same. So, we cycle through a lot of architectures: a global retailer, a global healthcare organization, a retail bank, an investment bank, a high performance, this kind of company, and they're all big things. And guess what? Whenever the students come in, they get rolled into these classes. So for the people that sign up today, they're going to be able to start training today, but they'll be put in our next physical class, which is Tuesday. It would be Friday, but Friday is Black Friday in the US. So for the most part, everybody's going to be shopping and buying Christmas presents as opposed to coming to classes. So the next class will be Tuesday. So Sana, the classes are live architecture training, and everybody works together. So what happens is when you're new, and you come to that first class, in the first week or two, it's a little bit of new foreign material. So you just listen in, you pay attention to what the more senior students are doing. Some of the more senior students graduate. What I mean by graduate is they get hired. So they move on to their new jobs. And then the more junior students move up the ranks. And then the more junior students at some point lead the more senior students in these calls. And then they get hired in the next set of more junior students. And that's the way you train doctors. That's the way you train martial artists. You put a lot of people with various skills in the same room, and you let them work together, led by someone who's me. So that's what we do twice per week in our classes. We have live architecture training, and architecture training doesn't ever change, and that's why it works out the way we do it. Now, Sana, we have two other components of our training. Component one is the work that you do on your own. So in addition to the two live classes that we do twice per week, which is really where we do most of the architectural training, in between classes, what you'll do and our students do is they watch videos, and we've got hundreds of hours of videos in our program. And in addition to just watching the videos, the other things that our students do is they do projects. They build their career plan, and we give them feedback on it. They watch a video on their resume, they build a resume, and we give them feedback on it. We do practice interview work where people are presenting certain things, like certain interview questions, and we give them feedback on it. We make the students do some mini presentations, and we give them feedback on it. We make the students turn in architectural case studies, and we give them feedback on it. So the key is we live training twice per week, and classes on their own where the students does their own project. They submit their project via Slack, and then we give feedback on it. So it's a classroom-like experience at all times. Live training twice per week and self-paced in between classes. Now, Sana, the last part of our training is the lab component. And again, our lab components are completely self-paced, and our labs are not like anybody else's in the world. I've worked very hard, spoken to a lot of people to find out what they desire, and our labs are based on the getting you cloud hired as opposed to just worrying about passing an exam. So what is it, Sana, that employers want? What do we do as cloud architects? In addition to asking a client about their business and creating a strategy to transform their business, we take the stuff, then from the network and the data center and move it to the cloud. Those things, that stuff, are virtual machines, they're containers, they're firewalls, they're VPN concentrators. It's block storage, it's object storage, it's file storage, it's NFS, it's server message block, it's Active Directory, it's the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack. Those are the things that we work with. And that's the stuff that employers care that you know about. And why do employers care that you know about that stuff? I can tell you right now, because that's the stuff you're going to actually be doing as a cloud architect. You're going to be taking the things from the network and the data center to the cloud, and you can't move things from the network and the data center to the cloud that you don't know. And that's why you typically see infrastructure experience desired. So we give you that infrastructure experience. So you will VPN into our servers, and you will set up firewalls, build VPN concentrators, work with server virtualization, build containers, build the LAMP stack. You will set up Active Directory. You know what else you're going to do, Ayansana? And every cloud architect needs to do this. You are going to build your own cloud from scratch on our servers. And I don't mean set up a VPC or just, I mean, you are going to build a cloud. Every cloud architect should know how to build AWS. Everyone from scratch. There's not a cloud architect of my students that couldn't build AWS or GCP or Azure, because I've taught them all, and they all know and they all learn. If you know the network and you know the data center, you know the cloud. And all my students build a cloud, Ayansana. So that explains for the program. The people that have signed up this morning, and quite a few people have already started working on their content, and they will be rolled into the next class on Tuesday. So we use a rolling admission. Now, Ayansana, if you are new to tech, it's going to take about 8 months in our program to get you cloud hired. And, it's going to be about 8 months. And we let you stay in the program for up to a year, because ending for us is when you are hired. If you've been working in tech for a while, it's going to take you about 16 weeks to get through and get hired. So just keep that in mind in our program. We don't charge more. If you need to be around for longer, we're happy to keep you in there for a full year. Our outcomes are getting you cloud hired. So I hope I answered your question, and I'd love to answer any more questions if you desire, Ayansana. Melissa, thank you as well, Mike. It's such a pleasure being your student. I thank God every day that I found your course. Thank you for your kind uplifting word as well. Melissa, I feel the exact same way about you. Every time I look through one of those videos you turn in, or I read something you turn in with that caring, meticulous, and this wonderful, wonderful perspective of the world, I feel honored and privileged to be able to work with you. So thank you so much for working with us. I really appreciate you putting your trust in us. I know we work really hard to try and make sure that everybody's successful, but I'm grateful to work with you, and it's a pleasure every single day. If you've got some questions, please ask them. And that's why we come online for you a couple times per week. We really, really, really want to make sure you have the best career. I have to tell you, when I started 25 years ago, I didn't know where to go. I bought this course. I bought this course. I spent almost $20,000 on training back in 1996 for an MCSE course and a CCNP course. And let me tell you, that was a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money now, but it's like 3 times more than that after adjusted for inflation. So I got to tell you, it's pretty exciting. It's exciting to be able to do things and leverage technology, deliver a better experience at a fraction of the cost. And I don't want anybody to be like me, where they didn't know where to go. And it's like, hey, let me buy this course. Let me buy this course. Let me buy this course. And let me buy this course. So yeah, absolutely. Rich Spoon, you're trying to break out into a cloud engineer, DevOps, or SRE role. 3 very different jobs there, Rich Spoon. I have a Linux admin background, and I'm learning all the popular cloud tools. How do you get noticed and get your first cloud job? Rich Spoon, okay, here is the thing. In order to get noticed and get your first cloud job, you've got to do a couple of things. First and foremost, you've got to really build the brand of exactly what you want. So right now, you just told me cloud engineer, which is basically someone that'll take the designs of a cloud architect and go build them. Then you told me DevOps, which is automating software release cycles. And then you told me a site reliability engineer, which is a person who just sits around and waits for things to break. So Rich Spoon, the first thing we've got to do is narrow it down to one of these jobs. So I'm going to pick cloud engineer, because cloud engineer and DevOps are 2 very different jobs as well, and different careers. If you want to be a cloud engineer, you really need to know the following. You need to know those underlying network and data center technologies, such as routing and switching. And you also need to understand servers, server virtualization, storage in depth, firewalls, VPN kind of things, access control lists, packet filtering, NAT, all these kind of things you really need to know something about. So less than the architect would need to know about the design, but some design knowledge would still be helpful, but much less design knowledge than the architect. Now, Rich, the cloud engineer is a hands-on position. So less design knowledge than the architect, but about 1,000,000 times more depth when it actually comes to the hands-on configuring. So to be a cloud engineer, the first thing you're going to need to do is get really good at the cloud. And that means first, make sure you know the network and the data center. 2, get hands-on. So while we architects are systems designers, cloud engineers are builders. So as a cloud engineer, make sure you're on the command line of whatever cloud you want to be great at, and you're configuring via the command line. Get used to it. Get used to the management console. Build everything you possibly can imagine. If you can think of a system, build it on the cloud. As a cloud engineer, you're going to be hands-on, 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 and hands-on. That's number one. Then what's next? As a cloud engineer, you're going to be doing a lot of building. So what can automate some building? Well, Bash shell scripting, which if you're a Linux admin, you're probably pretty fine with. You're going to need to know some Python scripting because you're going to be doing some automation. And even though it's not DevOps and it's more of a DevOps tool, I would still say the use of Terraform, infrastructure as code, is going to be pretty important. I wouldn't say to worry so much on CloudFormation because, CloudFormation is kind of, you've got a choice to do this AWS proprietary tool or something that works on every cloud, and most organizations are going multi-cloud. So I'd say, Terraform would be something for you to know. So I would learn Python. I would learn Bash scripting, which you probably already know, and I would learn some Terraform along the way. But for these engineer roles, it's really, really, really hands-on build. Now, if by comparison you wanted to be a DevOps engineer, again, that's a completely career. And for this DevOps engineer, you're going to have to be a good programmer first. And then after that, you're going to have to focus on all the DevOps tools, Git, Jenkins, Spinnaker, and there's a whole bunch of these other DevOps tools. So that would be that path, as really learning DevOps tools. And as far as the site reliability engineer, that's kind of just somebody that sits around all day and waits to fix things and swap out cards and things. So, that's a very, very different job and a very different preparation. So, Rich Spoon, now we've talked about 3 careers that are honestly so far apart from each other. They all require different training. So the next question is what is your brand? And what I mean by that is somebody recently sent me a resume and they're struggling to get hired. And on the first line, they talked about all development. And there was no architecture in there. There was either cloud engineering work, which was building, or there was software development, and there was no architecture. So the key is we've got to get your brand focused on exactly the career you actually want. So if you want to be an engineer, your LinkedIn profile, your resume profile, everything has to scream engineer. Talk about the building of things that you're doing, talking about the analysis things that you're doing, capacity planning kind of things that you're doing. Document write-ups, document, building of architectural design, or pictures at least, documenting as-built systems, and literally speaking, writing a document after you built the thing, how somebody can maintain it. Engineering is hands-on. So that's what you do. Then maybe write a blog article or something like that that shows that you know how to do something special, not how to set up a WordPress site. Nobody's going to hire you for that, but something really cool, something that's going to take some sophistication and some knowledge and some thought. Go do that, and the world will take notice. There's almost nobody out there that can do these jobs. So do that, and you will be taken seriously, and you will get noticed. It is very easy to be noticed. So build your resume, build your portfolio. Now, I'll give you some other secrets to help you get the first job. When you interview for a job, it's not all about just your tech. Nothing ever is. When you interview for a job, 50% of your interview is related to your technical competency, even for an engineer. And 50% is related to your soft skills, emotional intelligence, personality, attitude, energy, enthusiasm. So, Rich, I generally recommend learning how to become more emotionally intelligent, working on your soft skills. Make sure you get some interview skills. And we've got an incredible interview program that you can link. I'll have my Chris, drop a link to that from my team if you're curious. But you don't have to get ours. Just get some serious interview training, because when you're transitioning careers, you don't want to go You don't want to basically, you don't want to go on an interview and not win. You want to get hired on every interview you have. So focus on that interview and you will be great. You will get hired, you'll get promoted, and I welcome you to your new career. But that's all you necessarily do. But the key is don't learn 1,000,001 tools. Become great at the ones that matter. This is where people error rich. They try to learn everything. And here's the thing. You can't learn everything. You don't have enough time in our lifetimes to learn everything. So if you try to learn everything, effectively what you know is not enough about anything. You know nothing. If you learn 1,000,001 things, but only an inch deep and a mile wide, you still don't know anything. So focus on the best tools. Focus on Terraform. Focus on Python. Focus on getting hands-on into the cloud, on configuring it in your primary cloud, but still know how the cloud works so you can work on other clouds, and you will be in incredible, incredible shape. Yeah. And Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. But before you do that, Chris, if anybody's got questions, please ask them, and that's why we're here. We're here to answer any kind of questions you have, so you don't spend any time and go in circles or do things that are going to be hard for you. We want to get you to your goal as fast as possible. Look, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, so we want to show you that straight line to make sure that we get you there. Dorian Wright. When pursuing the Architect Associate Cert, what study material would suggest? Would your material alone prepare you for the exam? So Dorian Wright, you're my student. All you really need is the training that is in the course that you already purchased, and it will cover you for the Certified Solution Architect, Associate, and Professional. Now, having said that, Dorian Wright, we focus on getting people cloud hired. And it's slightly different when you're focused on getting certified. Here's the thing. Certification is the name of a service and how to configure it, Dorian Wright. We cloud architects don't code, we don't configure. So for the architect, all of the certification training is completely irrelevant because we're system designers. We don't code, we don't use the management console, we don't use the CLI, we don't use Terraform, we don't write scripts, we design. So, here's the thing. The training that's out there for certification is related to passing an exam, which is fine, but it has nothing to do with getting cloud hired. But you still got to pass that exam, Dorian Wright. So, here's my recommendations. I've looked at absolutely every certification training material that's out there, everything. And every time somebody's got a new material, I look at it again to see if it's good. Because I am not in the business of certification. I am in the business of getting people hired. And we work really, really hard to get our people hired. And getting people hired, we've got contacts with recruiters, contacts with hiring managers. We're all about the leadership skills, the branding, the resumes, the interview, everything necessary to get people hired. Oh, wait, we have to get the competency too. And the competency piece is huge, which we do. And we spend about 200 hours on competency, Dorian, for people that are new to tech. So what I recommend is this. Do our AWS training. And for those of you that are not our students, guess what? Our AWS training is completely free on our YouTube channel. And Chris from my team can pop it there. In addition to that, we have a completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate book. The link is in the description below of all of our videos. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to release completely free an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional book. And it's a book. We put a couple hundred pages additional to our old book, and we're real excited about releasing it. It's coming very soon. So I would say read that too, Dorian, when it's available. Now, the next course that I'll tell you that I really like for passing certifications exam is Andrew Brown from Exam Pro. I got to tell you, he and his team make a really good AWS certification training. And it's free, and it's far better than any of those other paid training programs that I'm out there. And I'm telling you, we've looked at all of them, and Andrew Brown's free, at least for certification passing, is far better than the other programs that are out there. So I would say do ours and are free. Remember, ours focuses more on architecture and more on the cloud hire piece because that's our focus. But the exams focus a little more on certification, which is the name of the service and how to configure it. And I got to tell you, Andrew Brown's content is exceptionally good. So that would be my recommendation outside. And by the way, it's free. You can find it on YouTube. Andrew Brown from Exam Pro Free Code Camp. He's got some good training that I like to recommend periodically for certification exams. And got to make sure you get a practice test. Haman Sharma from Review and Prep has got some good practice exams on his site. There's lots of companies that also make a good practice exam. I generally like to take a practice exam before an exam because, or at least recommended if you're dealing with AWS questions. They ask the questions in a very funny way. The exams aren't really hard per se, but it is hard to really read those questions because they ask them in a very strange way. So I would say it's good to get a practice exam to just get used to the way AWS asks questions. And that when you're on the real exam, you don't have to spend, 2 hours trying to figure out, the way they worded their questions. You'll already know how they word their questions, so you'll be able to read them quicker and then do better. So that would be my recommendation for you, Dorian. Dorian Wright, but it's really all free except for the practice test, and you can probably find that on the internet for free too. Sandy, are there any students with no tech background who graduate before the 8 months? The answer is absolutely yes. So Sandy, I've had a lot of people graduate before the 8 months. My fastest was this guy, Richard from Nigeria. He was a really amazing young man. He came to me and he had zero tech background, and within 3 weeks, he was hired by AWS. Now, to be fair, he joined the program. He was learning really fast. I actually think he stayed up all night and started going through the program every day. And then when he got an interview with AWS, he ordered 3 private interview sessions with me. And we worked really hard to get him through those interview sessions. And, here's the thing. As soon as we did that, he got hired. So it was within 3 weeks. I've had lots of other people get through very quickly too. But I like to underpromise and overdeliver. You're never going to hear me say I can get somebody through in a week. It's never going to happen. So I say people 8 months for people without a tech background. But, Sandy, I went from not even seeing a router to being the lead architect at the world's largest internet service provider within 6 months of the time I decided to do it. So, here's the thing. You can do it. It's just how hard you're willing to work. And, under these circumstances, it's up to you. But it's going to take some time, and we all learn differently. So I'm going to tell you 8 months. And if you happen to be hired in 4 months, great. And I'd love that. But I just want to be realistic and underpromise and overdeliver. And that way everybody's happy if they graduate in 6 months. But it's really dependent upon how hard you're willing to work and how strong your focus is. Are you laser-like focused for the win? And if you are, you're going to do great. So just kind of keep that in mind. But Sandy, you will do well, very well. I'm sure you will. And then Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. And actually, anybody that's out there right before I answer this, by all means, ask some questions. We're here to do anything we can to help you in your cloud computing careers. And then Chris, if you want to bring in that. Radani, how does one grow once they got their first cloud job? Okay, what a great question, Radani. And there's 2 ways you can do this. Now, I'm going to give you the good and the bad of both, because both options are there. So Radani, once you get your first cloud job, the key is it the job you want? So if it's the job you want, like if your first job and you wanted to be a cloud architect and your first job was a cloud architect job, we're going to work under those assumptions. So if you've got your first architect job, and I'll show you what you can do in either case. If it was engineering, we can still work with this. But let's say you've got your first architect job. Now you're a small fish in a huge pond in most cases. So now how do you get noticed? How do you become great? And how do you get promoted? Now here, you're going to have a couple levers. Rendani, you can become the technical guru. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you've got a cloud network architect job, and you decide that you really want it, you like it, and you want to be the best at it. The way to be promoted and to be noticed would be, okay, build that networking knowledge. So get that CCIE level networking knowledge. Specialize in BGP for cloud computing, for example, or some small area of networking, and become really great at it. Now, Rendani, study this area so well that no one in the world would know it as well as you. I mean, study it just so well, and then start teaching it to everybody. Start writing some documents about it, write some papers about it, write some LinkedIn posts, share it with the world. And guess what? People will notice you as an expert. Change your resume to be just that one thing. And if you want to be that on the tech side, Rendani, That will boost your career because you will become the go-to person. You'll be the person that's coached and mentored others. The employers will see it. The employers will notice your contributions. You will get promoted. You will get noticed, and you will do well. And you know what, Rindani? Early in my career, that's exactly what I did. It's exactly what I did. Then, when I was a little older, I got pulled into a room with my manager one day. And Rindani, my manager, pulls me in a room. And we had a bunch of leaders come in this day, and the leaders were coming in to talk to us about leadership skills, specifically exercising influence. And I really loved the discussion. And then after that, my manager says, Mike, can we talk? And I said, sure. And he says, I'm watching you participate. And he said, I watch the way you communicate. I watch the way you do things. And everybody does it this way. And you do it a completely different way. He said, I like your style so much. My manager said, do you know the difference between a $100,000 engineer and a $300,000 engineer? And I was like, tell me, because it was about 15, 20 years ago. And, it's a lot of money now, but it was even more money back then, like double. And I remember when my manager said, I asked him, what is it? And he says, Mike, he said, it's not your tech. He said, that's only going to get you so far, and you've already peaked it. He said, it's the communication abilities. Can you walk and command a room? Can you lead others? Can you make a difference in your customers? Can you get in front of that customer CEO and explain the value of the solution? Can you ask the right questions? Can you develop your business acumen? When I heard this from Donnie, and I said, wait, would you help pay for my MBA? And my manager said, of course. Then my manager said, would you also like to go to some leadership training on exercising influence, executive communication, CXO relevancy? And I said, sign me up. I took all that training, as much as they gave me, and I bought a lot more on my own. Well, it's said and done. I think I spent about $250,000 with both companies between me and what else was funded. It paid for itself in a year. So, Randani, the secret to really rising and getting noticed is while everybody else is focused on their tech, when you are someone that can communicate like an executive and you still know the tech just as well as the techies, that makes you a really, really, really unique person. And do you want to know what one of the most valuable skills is in architecture or engineering? It's the ability to translate between the business side of what the executives need and the engineers that are going to build it. So if you can translate between the engineers and what they can do and all that knowledge in their head, which is so much and so valuable, and you can translate this knowledge to executive knowledge to communicate that to the executive, it puts you in a world where no one can compete with you. It puts you in a world where you have the best careers. And I got to tell you, most of what I did once I started to rise to the occasion, I was a facilitator and a coordinator and a leader of other people that were far, 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 far more technically adept. Kind of looking at it this way, I come from a primary care medicine perspective, and here's what I do. Here's what a good primary care provider does, is we are the coordinator of care. If I've got somebody that comes to me with high blood pressure or hypertension, I know how to treat that, Randani, but I'm going to send them to a cardiologist anyway, the best one I know, just to get a perspective. And you know what else I'm going to do? If I've got a diabetic, I'm going to send them to an endocrinologist, not because I don't know how to treat them, because I want the specialist to tell me. You know what, Randani, when you become a really good architect like that, you become the coordinator. You ask the cloud security architect for the security piece. You ask the cloud IAM architect for the IAM piece. You ask the cloud network architect to help you design your networking piece. You ask the cloud big data architect to help you with this. You ask your cloud engineers to give you some more detailed information, and you work together and put it to a team, and that's how you design an architecture. It's not a one-person design team. It's a multiple-person design team. When you've got a lot of people together and you collaborate, you're there. Now, Randani, the opposite side of that coin is when you have your area of expertise, you're going to go help somebody else in their design, and you are a team. Architecture is a team sport. Be great at the team sport of architecture, and that's how you get noticed, and that's how you get promoted, and that's how the world will come and find you. So there's so many great things, but it's about leadership. It's about business acumen. It's about executive presence. That's what separates the really high-end architects, the business architect, the enterprise architect, and that's what causes them to have such a rapid career. Now, having said that, we need the tech people, Brandani. We die without the tech people. Nothing works without the really deep technical people. So you can be that super deep technical person, and that's fine. You can be the business person, but to be the best, hybridize your tech and your business. Be good at both, and you will always, always, always grow. And if you've got further questions, I'd love to answer them. If you've Okay, new tech techie. Thanks for answering your early questions. Just to make sure, because you're seeing it in different places in the job descriptions. Do architects need to know programming or coding? Architects do not code. Architects do not configure. We see it in job descriptions all over the place. And we're not the only people that are upset by it. We work with a lot of really good recruiters, and every time they see coding on an architect description, they literally call the hiring manager and say, do you want someone that can code? And here's the thing, they always say no. I've been an architect for 25 years. I have never coded anything in my life. And I call my architect buddies at AWS and Google and Azure and Cisco and Palo Alto and anybody else that's got a cloud, and I say, hey, do you code? They laugh at me. They're like, we are not coders. We're not software engineers. We're cloud architects. We focus on the cloud. But that's the thing. You see it constantly in these job descriptions. In fact, there's two things that go on with these job descriptions, and I want to explain to you what they are. The first thing is the HR and why HR makes these silly job descriptions that are insane. Here's what happens. If I told you that a low performance company like a cable company gets 3,000 applications for a single position, I'm not joking. And nobody is going to think of a cable company as like a high performance, high customer satisfaction, well-run, well-oiled machine. So they get 3,000 applications for a single position. Now think of a good company that everybody wants to work for. 5,000 plus applications for a single position. So can an HR person comb through this? No. So what do? They come up with what I call silly roadblocks. 3 Olympic gold medals, lots of experience coding, lots of experience with this, lots of experience with this, lots of experience with this. Why does HR do this? They have no choice. HR is not they're not technology professionals. And since they're not technology professionals, they have no idea how to gauge your technology experience. So the only thing they can put there are roadblocks like this. So here's what happens. Now, HR gets the person that has DevOps, SysOps, coding, software engineering, a little networking, a little security, a little of this. And they say, we found our candidate. Now, new tech techie, they bring that candidate to me or the other hiring manager. We go interview this candidate. We ask 3 questions, and we're like, this person doesn't know anything about anything, because they have so many things that they've done, but they don't know anything in depth. So we can't hire this person. So here's what we then do. We then call our favorite recruiter, and then we call our recruiter, and I call Christina Marino or Steve Aracrelian from IT Excel. They're my main recruiters, although I work with a lot of others, but they're my main ones, and they've placed me in jobs, and they've placed many of my graduates. And I call them and I say, Christina, I need a cloud architect that's got good business acumen, good system design skills, and I need a lot of networking. And she calls me back and tells me she's got one. Look, this job description thing for cloud architect is so bad, and it's caused so many to be confused. And I've got to tell you, because of this, I interviewed 5,000 people, and 5,000 people were certified. They all knew coding. They knew all these other things, but not a single one of them was hireable as a cloud architect, because they had every other skill. It's not just scary to me, it's actually scary to Gartner as well. So if you're new to tech, what you'll find is there's organizations that really, really, really focus on tech. So one of them is Gartner, for example. And Gartner will tell you the best software-defined networking, the best cloud, the best firewall, the best video card, the best GPU things, the best data center trends, the best everything. That's what Gartner does, and they're amazing at it. So these are what Gartner does. And Gartner went and asked the chief information officers across organizations, what do you want in a cloud architect? And here's the reason they did it. They knew by looking at these job descriptions for cloud architects that these weren't architect descriptions, because we architects do one thing: we design. And coding is not designed, not at all. Coding is building. So here's what happened, and I'll pop the link in the chat box for you. And this is exactly what I've done as an architect for the last 25 years. This is exactly what all my other architect buddies do at all the cloud providers. And this is published information. I sent you the link to the magazine article. So the CEO sets the strategy. The chief information officer helps execute the CEO's mission through the use of information technology. So the CIO basically runs the IT department. The CIO hires the VP of IT, who hires the director of IT, who hires the hiring manager, who hires the engineers and the architect. So Now you know the structure of these organizations. So when Gartner asked these chief information officers, the people that pay our salaries, so they know exactly what they want, be what the hiring manager wants, and you get hired, here's what they told Gartner that they're looking for. They want a cloud architect that can lead the cultural change for cloud adoption, develop and coordinate a cloud architecture, and develop a cloud strategy and coordinate the adoption process. Wait, lead the cultural change for cloud adoption? That sounds like a leadership thing to me. Develop and coordinate a cloud architecture sounds like a tech thing. And developing a strategy and coordinating the adoption process, half business, half tech. So now, every day on a daily basis, what does the cloud architect do? And these are the people that are writing the checks. So this is exactly what you've got to be if you want to get hired. The cloud architect helps find the talent with the necessary skills, assesses applications, software, and hardware, creates a cloud broker team, establishes best practices for the cloud across the company, selects cloud providers and vets third-party services, oversees governance and mitigates risk, works closely with IT security to monitor privacy and develop incident response procedures, manage budgets and estimate cost and operating and scale. Okay, so what did you hear? Lead, design, find, coordinate. There's no coding in the job of the architect. There's no hands-on configuration in the job of the architect either. All of what we do is design, and we lead, and we ask questions so we can make a better design. And this is the mismatch why people can't get the first cloud architect job, because they're studying the name of a service and how to configure it as opposed to how to design and how to lead. If a doctor wanted to practice medicine, but instead they went to school to learn how to walk dogs and wash cars, and they applied for a doctor job, the other doctors would be like, you don't know medicine, you know how to wash cars and walk dogs. Now, I love dogs, and I used to love washing my car. I can't do it because of some herniated discs and some rotator cuffs, but I used to love doing it. But I didn't learn how to wash my car and wax my car to practice medicine. I learned it because I like a clean car. So, just make sure that the skills you have are actually related, and coding and configuring, despite being seen on a job description, is definitely not the right thing. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. And before you do, if any of you have any questions, we want to do anything we can to help you get your career. Just this question from New Tech Techie, it's really important, because if New Tech Techie focuses their time on coding, they won't have the ability to focus their time on architecture work or the leadership piece, and then they won't get hired. And that's why we're here for you, because we want to guide you to the right skills so you can get cloud hired. Also, if you're having a good time, if you can hit that like button, I know it helps us dramatically in the algorithm. Rindani, thanks. You'll take this and run with it. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Let us know how well you do. Let us know of your rapid career success. I want you to be super successful, and I'm thrilled to be talking to you today. Good to see you, Rindani. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Sandy, how many of my students get hired as cloud architects before taking the cloud security architect roles? How do my students go straight? Kind of both, half and half, Sandy. Sometimes my people end up with a solution architect role if they don't focus quite as hard on the leadership skills as I want them to, instead of a cloud architect. Some go straight into cloud security, some go straight into cloud architect. It goes either way. I don't have a hard number on it, but I'd say it's about half and half, Sandy. And that's a great question. I just don't have the exact metrics on it. But you'll be fine with either role you desire. Kenya Carl. Good morning, Michael. It's nice to see you. Always good to see you, Kenya Carl. I've just listened to your video on leadership. Can I explain more about the principle of scarcity? Absolutely. So today we released a video for everybody that's here, and the video is on exercising influence. Specifically, I talked about Robert Cialdini's studies of exercising influence, because Robert Cialdini did most of the research on ethical persuasion of others and influence. Now, this is a really important video. Chris from my team, if you can pop a link to this video. Here's the reason it's so important. As an architect, you're going to be leading a lot of teams. And here's an example. Let's say you have to do a proof of concept. We architects are not hands-on people. So let's say we have to do a proof of concept, and we need 10 cloud engineers to go build our proof of concept, or 20 cloud engineers. The cloud engineers don't work for us, but we have to lead the cloud engineers into the build, and they're going to be effectively working for us without working for us. So here's the thing. if an employee works for you, it's easy to manage them. They do their job and they get fired. When somebody works, when you have to lead someone that doesn't work for you, you can't discipline your employee. You can't say, you have to do that. If the employee says no, you can't say you're fired. So there's no ability to force or coerce your employees to do anything. Now, to be fair, I don't think I've ever forced or coerced an employee to do anything in my entire life. I don't believe in it, except in an emergency where it's like a fire. You drag the person out of the building. But the rest of the time, that command and control leadership, except in a crisis, generally doesn't work so well. So here's the principle of scarcity. Certain things that are scarce resources are much, 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 much more valuable. So that is why a diamond is worth more than coal. A diamond comes made out of carbon or coal in the first place, but a diamond is worth more because it's a scarce resource. So when you are a leader, if you are more scarce, you're highly valued. Now, Kenya Carl, here's what's going on. When I look at my days and I look at what my life used to be like, it was very simple. I woke up, I'd do my 3 hours of physical therapy, I'd climb down the stairs, I'd eat breakfast, and then I would do some things throughout the day. A couple work projects. Life was really good. Then I started this company. I mean, I had the company, but I actually started doing things with YouTube and things. And all of a sudden, my phone rings. I get about 3,000 emails, texts, and Slack messages throughout the course of the day. Why? Because apparently what I'm doing is highly, highly, highly in demand. And because of this, when we look at people that are in demand, they're worth more. So when a person's single, it's hard for them to get a date. But when they're dating someone or married, the world wants them. When you want a job, it's hard to get a job. When you have a job, the world comes and looks for you. When you have money, the banks offer you money and loans. But when you don't have money, you can't get a loan from a bank. So kind of remember this principle, the principle of scarcity. So when you're out there and you're applying for an interview, for example, and you get an interview and they say, when can you interview? Don't say, I'm available all next week from Monday, 8 a.m. to Friday at 7 p.m. I've got nothing else going on in your life. You have to be scarce. Because if you were important, or at least the industry would perceive that if you were important, you would be a scarce resource. So, for example, in the same situation, you might say, I can interview with you on Monday from 2 to 4, on Tuesday from 9 to noon, on Wednesday from 4 to 5, on Thursday from 9 to 3, and on Friday from 10 to 2. And that way you're giving someone quite a bit of time still, but you're showing that you're busy, and that makes you more in demand and it makes you more valuable. So there's always that kind of concept, is to make sure the resources seem scarce. And if it's your architectural design and you're describing it and you're dealing with a customer that wants the most elite, and you can say, this kind of design has only been done by the world's largest banks or those that are the most concerned about security, and the success rate has been 28% or 29% or 79% or whatever your metrics are, accurate metrics, and showing that it's an elite thing or it's a scarce thing. Again, that raises the value. For some reason, people want that. Some of these cars that there's only one of a kind, that the value of them is 10 times more than a production thing. Why? It's scarce. So just remember the principle of scarcity is that the less available something is, the higher its worth. So have a skill or train your skills that are more scarce. So Kenya Carl, and I know you, and you are very emotionally intelligent, and you speak extremely well, and you also write really well. That is a really scarce resource, Kenya. Really, really, really scarce resource. So that makes you very different. That sets you apart. So when you're building your brand, Kenya Carl, and you're showing the resources that you are, things that you do so much better than others, things that are such scarce resources, that raises your value. So trying to, part of your branding is showing your scarcity. Your scarcity is your expertise, and on some of those things, that makes you a more scarce resource. So the key is just showing how there's something special about you that not everybody else has. And this is kind of one of those things. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. German Ventura, AWS or GCP for newbies? Neither. German Ventura. Don't learn AWS. Don't learn GCP, and don't learn Azure. You won't have a career if you do. Learn the cloud. There's a big difference between learning AWS and learning the cloud. Learning the cloud means you know the cloud. What is the cloud? It's a network and a data center. I want you to learn this. I want you to learn BGP. I want you to learn OSPF. I want you to learn about VPN technologies. I want you to learn about private lines. I want you to learn about NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT. I want you to learn about IP addressing. I want you to learn about switching. I want you to learn about spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, 802.1q tagging, VLANs, VLAN trunking protocols. I want you to learn about Ether channel link aggregation groups. I want you to learn about fiber optic network connectivity and what happens if one laser goes down and the concept of bilateral forwarding link detection, that kind of thing. I want you to know that. Minimum from the networking. I want you to understand how routing works, how switching works, how IP addressing works, how to summarize routes, how to subnet down, just minimum from the networking side. And then when you're done that, I want you to learn server virtualization, and I want you to learn containers. And then I want you to learn block storage in depth, and object storage in depth, and file storage in depth. All of them really deep in depth. And then learn firewalls and VPN concentrators and IDS, IPS systems in depth. These are the skills that you need to know in depth. I mean, real depth on these kind of things. Learn about load balancers in depth. Learn about DNS in depth. Learn about databases in depth. Learn that. Then German Ventura, here's the thing. When you do your architectural designs and you say, I need a virtual machine, okay, you go to the store. You go to the AWS store and you buy an EC2 instance. You go to the Azure store and you buy a virtual machine. You go to the Google one, and guess what you get out of the Google one? You get the Compute Engine instance. Oh, wait, I need a NoSQL database that's fully managed. Do I get Google Cloud Bigtable or I get DynamoDB from AWS? It doesn't matter, German Ventura. It's the same thing. So here's the thing, German Ventura. A building architect and a cloud architect is the same thing. A building architect designs a building and says it's going to be 500 meters tall. The building architect determines the steel, the glass, the materials. Then the building architect hires a construction crew. And the construction crew buys their steel from wherever. It doesn't have to be from the AWS store or the Azure store. They buy it from wherever. So you as an architect, German Ventura, you should learn the cloud. And if you learn the cloud, which is really a network in the data center, then you can work on AWS, GCP, or Azure. So now the next question is, which you should have a home cloud that you learn, which is your primary cloud. And I got to tell you, you've got to look at the statistical significance of this, because this is really important. When it comes to getting your first cloud architect job, you have two problems you have to overcome. One is getting technically competent. And two is finding an employer that's going to like you so much that's going to look past your lack of experience. So what we do, and the reason we're so incredibly successful, is we build really competent cloud architects, but we also work so hard to make them so emotionally intelligent, so likable, present so well, interview so well that the employer can't help but hire them because they need somebody this good. And then we get them hired. But not every hiring manager is willing to hire somebody with no experience. I'd say 1 in 4 is. So not every one, but 1 in 4 probably is, maybe even 1 in 3, because that's what we're seeing. If you bring in the right person, the hiring manager, they will get hired, but it might only be 1 in 3. So Google has less than 10% market share. So that means of all the jobs out there, it's going to be only 10%. And of those 10%, we only have 1 in 3 hiring managers that'll take someone with no experience. So by using Google as the first thing, and now I'm Google Cloud certified. I love the Google Cloud. The Google Cloud is incredible. And that was my first certification. And here's the reason. I get 3 cloud architect job offers a day without certification. With certification, it's irrelevant. And here's the reason. I've been designing the cloud for 25 years. Networking, clouds, it's the same. So, that's my world. So what I would say is, don't do the Google one for this reason as your primary certification when you're new to the cloud. If you're new to the cloud, you should do AWS or Azure and not Google. Now, years later, if you want to do the Google, great. I love the Google. It's the best architecture exam in cloud. It's the only one that even includes a little bit of architecture work, and it's well written, well designed, well thought out. It's the best exam that I'm telling you that's out there. But if you're new and you've got to get somebody to hire you and you don't have experience, you need as many people as possible to hire you. Right now, that's AWS. So, or Azure. So either you get your minimum entry-level certification, which is the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, or the Azure Expert. That's it. Don't get a bunch of associate certifications along the way. Associate, professional, and be done with it. So, in exactly what you want it to be and nothing else. Don't distract your portfolio, but then you will do really, really, really well. And if you want more questions or want some more depth on that, I'm happy to answer it. So if you've got some questions, please bring them. We love answering questions. Otherwise, Chris, just bring in the next question. Dorian Wright, your daughter is a freshman in high school. She is interested in cloud architecture from watching you pursue this career. What do you suggest for a high school student? Dorian, I love this. And the reason I love this is I've worked with a few people. One person I'm thinking of, he has actually the same initials as me. He was a person that I met. I think he was 15 years old at the time. And, he was a really, really good kid, a really, really smart kid, and a really, really motivated kid. And I had been mostly retired at the time because I was involved in a bad accident. I was retired. And the kid says to me, I'm lost. And anyway, somehow along the line, he convinced me to teach him networking. And, 10 years later, the kid and I are still really good friends, and he's got an incredibly good job. So here's what we did. Over the summer, we did a Cisco Certified Network Associate, and we did the first, We did the first, the first of the 4 certifications for the Cisco Certified Network Professional, me and this fine young man. And then what happened is, we did a little more, we did a little more, we did a little more. While he was in high school, I made him take his computer and switch it over to Linux. I wouldn't let him use Windows anymore, and I made him do everything from the command line. And he did really well. I even made him write one of his papers in something called VI, it's a Unix text editor, which then I let him, after he was done that, put him into OpenOffice and actually do the grammar. So the point is there's that. So when you've got someone that's in high school, have them explore with networking. Maybe get a networking simulator like EVE-NG. In addition to that, maybe do the Certified Solution Architect Associate. The training that we provide Dorian is completely free for that, and she can do well. Next month, we're going to be doing some networking training. Have her come and do the networking training. She'll learn a lot. Have her work on certifications. Start with an associate, work her way up to a professional. Let her, by the time she's done school, let her learn. Let her play. And you know what, Dorian, if you can afford it, get a server. I can recommend one of the servers that I use. They're pretty good. I mean, it would be worth it in your case to have a really good, say, 24-core server with about 128 gigs or 256 gigs of RAM and a couple of rapid drives. And she can build a cloud on that server. And she can, on that server, she can set up Cisco simulators, and she can build firewalls on that server. She can really play with Linux. And by the time she gets done high school, she'll be really, really, really capable. And the reality is, and when I work with people like this, by the time they're done high school, they can easily get 6-figure jobs. So by doing that, it's quite possible that you could actually get a good job straight out of high school and then have the employer actually pay for her college. My employer paid for one of my master's degrees. So, there's that as well. Most employers give a good $10,000, $15,000 a year of tuition reimbursement. So that is possible. But if she likes tech now, go for it. It's really great. And I love working with young people. I've taken young people into my programs before as well. I'm not trying to sell you admissions. I'd love to work with her as well because I love working with young people. But the key is she can do it on her own because she's got plenty of time and she's not in a rush, Dorian. But I will say, young people that love tech, get them involved in tech. Really get them involved in tech, and they'll do pretty great. And then, Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Frantic Chanter. You've noticed a lot of companies requiring solution architects have coding experience. You've always thought solution architects include coding. Frantic Chanter. So what's the difference for a solution architect? Frantic Chanter. No solution architect does coding unless they're a technical solution architect, which is really an engineer and not an architect. Here is the thing. HR is writing these job descriptions. So I'll say it again because a lot of people weren't here in the beginning. What's going on is as follows. What's going on is organizations, low performing organizations, such as a cable company, typically get about 3,000 applications for a single job. And well-run organizations get over 5,000 applications for a single job. And the companies can't do anything with it. So HR tries to thin the herd by coming up with roadblocks such as coding and other ridiculous things that aren't related, coding and DevOps and SysOps and everybody else's career. And then HR picks the best resumes. You know what HR's version of the best resumes are? The people that have all the experience. So they then send those people to us hiring managers. We then interview the person. We ask them about architecture and we start asking questions. Could you tell me how you would approach the CEO? And they look at you like you got four heads. How would you design this? And the person looks at you like you got four heads. How would you integrate this, this, this? And the person looks like you have four heads. So Frantic Chatter, what we find as hiring managers is everybody knows how to code. Millions of coders out there. Everybody learns it in college. But coding doesn't equal design. So what we find is coders. We find people with great knowledge of Python, great knowledge of Terraform, CloudFormation. Not that I can imagine why anybody would use that when you've got Terraform, but we've got CloudFormation experts. We've got scripting experts, Bash shell scripting experts, literally everything other than architecture, which is design. So there is no coding for the cloud architect. Guess what else there is in Frontier Charter or the solution architect? We don't configure either. Meaning we don't configure, we don't touch the CLI, and architect is a business position. Now, you can go back and if you click the link from CIO Magazine, I'll pop it in here again. I don't want to go through the presentation again from CIO Magazine, where they go through what a cloud architect or a solution architect does. There's no coding or configuration on the list. And I've been an architect for 25 years, and all my graduates that get hired, whether in a big four consulting firm or a cloud provider, you know, the big joke with them, I ask them, I said, how much coding do you do in your job? They're like, Mike, I'm an architect. I don't code. I say, how much configuring do you do in your job? And they say, Mike, I'm an architect. I don't touch the tech. I design the tech, I sell the tech, and I present the tech. And I'm telling you, that's what I've done. That's what all my architect buddies are doing. And that's why nobody's getting hired. And that's why my students get hired every day, Frantic Chatter, because everybody's studying all these things. Before I started this company, because I've been involved in this forever, I was retired. I never wanted to start this company. I was retired. I started this company for the following reason, Frantic Chatter. I've coached people for 20 years to get their best tech job. And I did it on a private one-to-one basis. And I had set up this massive blockchain data center. I mean, it was a beautiful data center. We had about 300 devices that were mining Bitcoin. We had 600 GPUs that were doing these things. I got a whole community involved in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining in a part of the country that had really cheap electric, and everybody was having a great time. And the owner of a building said, Mike, will you train my kid in what's most important in tech? And I said, absolutely, Nick, you're my friend. And I said, here's what I'm going to do. I said, I'm going to buy him the top 3 best-selling courses. And I'm going to spend 2 to 4 hours with him with personal coaching every Friday. And called this kid Nathan. What a smart young man he was, and a fine young man with a good heart, hard work, motivation, great in every way. I bought him the course on a Monday. On Wednesday, the kid called me and he said, Mike, he said, a couple of questions for you. And I said, sure, Nathan. I said, but we're meeting on Friday. And he says, yeah, but I need to ask these questions now. And I said, okay. He said, Mike, I've watched these things. I set up an EC2 instance and I configured an S3 bucket. What's an EC2 instance, Mike? And what is S3? And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, I built it, but I don't know what it is. And I said, that can't be, because these were the 3 best-selling courses. So I said to the kid, I said, here's the thing. I said, I'm going to watch this training. And if you're lazy, we're done. But if I watch this training and it's bad, you and I are going to create new content together. I watched the training. I was horrified, Frantic Chatter. Horrified. The training didn't talk about the tech. There was no discussion of design. There was no discussion of what customers need. There was no discussion about how do you transform business. There was no business acumen. There was no ROI modeling. There was no leadership training. There was nothing about any of what we do as architects. None of it. In fact, it was so unrelated to what we did. It was so irrelevant. I was petrified. And you know what else I did right after that? I interviewed 1,000 people. And you know what all 1,000 people knew? how to configure everything. Terraform, Python, they knew it. You know what none of them knew? System design. None of them, which meant none of them were hired. So I created this program, and my students get hired every single day now because it's a matter of knowing system design. So, the CIO magazine published exactly, and I'll pop the link in here for you because, I don't want you to hear it from me. I want you to hear it from the people that actually write the checks. But I've been an architect now for 25 years, and I've never coded things. And I got to tell you, the last time I ever configured anything for Annick Charter was when I left engineering and moved into architecture roles. It was a great experience. Okay, Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. T&E event planning, so good to see you. Good morning, Mr. Mike. Thank you for your time and all your encouragement. When you say study the cloud solution architect in depth, what certification do you recommend? Okay, so T&E event planning, I know I always say this, certifications do not get you hired. Knowledge and competency and all the other things do get you hired. But what certifications do I recommend? And I do love certifications. Why do I love certifications? This is really important. Certifications do make up for gaps in experience on your resume. Very, very, very helpful. And we need that. So certifications will also help you get an interview. Now that's where the certifications utility stops. And that's where people get themselves in trouble. They get a million certifications and they assume those certifications are going to get them hired. But they don't get somebody hired. They get somebody an interview. So the key is what certifications will get you hired. So T&T event planning, first you need to tell me what is your exact goal career. And here's what I mean. If you wanted to be a DevOps engineer, there are certain certifications for that. If you want to be a cloud architect, there's certain certifications for that. If you want to be a cloud security architect, there's a different set of certifications for that. If you want to be a cloud network architect, there's a different level of certifications for that too. So the key is which career you want. Now, I will tell you, there are some certifications that everybody should recommend, that I recommend for everybody. I recommend all people skip the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam. The reason I recommend skipping the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam is as follows. There are 0 jobs available with the Cloud Practitioner, 0. And it's going to take the average person, about 2 months to do the Cloud Practitioner. The average cloud architect earns $600 a day, even though a good one can easily earn double or triple that every day. But the average cloud architect earns $600 a day. So if it takes the average person 2 months to do this course, that's $600 per day times 2 months, which is $24,000 of lost earnings at the average cloud architect salary. And then when the person's done that, they're going to go do the associate. And guess what happens when you're done the certified solution architect associate? There are still no jobs. So the jobs, unless you have lots of knots and lots of experience. So the minimum certifications that I recommend are as follows. Either the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional or the Azure Expert. Either one is enough. And then I typically like another certification based upon whatever area of focus you have. So if you wanted to be a cloud network architect, I'd like a CCNP or the Aviatrix Multi-Cloud Network Engineer Professional along with the Certified Solution Architect Professional. If by comparison, you wanted to be a security architect, I like the CISSP combined with the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, something big from an industry. So these are the kind of things that I'm typically looking for. I'm looking for something big. Now, if you didn't know what you wanted to be and you wanted to be a little bit generic, it might make sense to be a Certified Solution Architect Professional, get like a basic Red Hat certification, and basically get a CCNA and combine those 3. That way you've got a networking one, which is infrastructure. You've got Red Hat, which is kind of your operating system, which is kind of infrastructure because Linux is everything. And then you've got the Certified Solution Architect Professional. And that works great for a generic cloud architect. Absolutely great. So that's what I'm referring to. But more importantly, these certifications don't teach cloud architecture. They teach the name of the service and how to configure it. So you still have to learn the architecture piece. The architecture piece is the system design piece, and it's not taught in any of these things. The architecture piece is the transformation piece. Going to that customer, understanding their business and learning how to do that. So the certifications by themselves won't do anything. They don't get anybody hired. They're just the name of the service and how to configure it. So, if you want to do the certifications, they are the certifications, but realize the limit for these jobs. the certifications are not enough to get hired. They're just not. If I looked at a resume or most people that had a certified solution architect professional and a CCNA and a Red Hat certified, engineer or certified administrator, those are 3 big certifications that are going to help someone. But still, I'd say that's 15% of the knowledge that's necessary to get hired. The other 85% is design, and it's not covered there. It's the business acumen, the communication skills, the leadership skills, the emotional intelligence, executive presence. Realize that even if you just do the certifications and you spend the next year doing them, without those other skills, you won't get there. So focus on your presentation skills, learn business acumen, learn how to read a financial statement, learn how to be relevant to the CEO, CFO, CIO, CTO, etc. Learn about digital transformation, learn about, presentation skills, get that executive presence so you can walk in and command the room. Then you'll have a great career. So I wanted to separate and make sure it's very clear. Certifications will help you get an interview, but they don't get you hired. So make sure you do both, and then you'll have a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic career. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Frantic Charter. What's the difference between cloud architecture and solutions architecture? That is a really great question. And I'm going to answer it the most accurate way, but realize there's a little bit of wiggle room in this, and here's the reason. The word solutions architect or solutions architecture frantic charter is kind of a garbage term. And what I mean by that is, if you go to a carpeting store, some of them have solutions architect. If you go to buy a mobile phone, some of them are called solutions architect. So in general, a solution architect is someone that just designs a solution on a single vendor's platform. So when you're dealing with solutions architects and solutions architecture, it's typically, I'm going to go design a solution on just AWS, or I'm going to design a solution on Google, or I'm going to design a solution just on Azure. So a solutions architect is someone that works for AWS, or someone that works for Azure, or someone that works for Google and designs and sells only their stuff. That's a solutions architect. Now, frantic charter. A year ago, 29% of all customers that were on the cloud were on a single cloud, which is a huge number. Now, the cloud's matured. People know the cloud isn't anything that's mystical. They know it's just a network and a data center that's virtualized, and they're using it to outsource their data center. Now, frantic charter. Now the reason is setting into the CIO's minds and all the technology professionals, and they're like, this is crazy. I can't put all my eggs in a single cloud. A single cloud is a single point of failure. And Azure got hacked a few times. Google had a recent outage. Facebook had a recent outage. And one of the cloud providers made a decision which really scared a lot of businesses about a year ago. Now, only 3% of organizations are on a single cloud. So frantic charter, the days of the solution architect in my mind are over. They need to be a cloud architect instead. So here's the difference between cloud architecture and solutions architecture. It's identical with one exception. The cloud architect focuses on the full end-to-end picture. So do you build a Nutanix or OpenStack cloud in the data center? Do you connect that to AWS or Azure? Do you connect that OpenStack Ansible cloud to AWS, Azure, and Google? And why shouldn't you? Frantic charter, a good cloud architect is really about optimizing their customer's business through the use of technology. Right now, we're all on a Google Media. We're all on YouTube. Google has the absolute best machine learning, artificial intelligence tools in the world. Look at their business. Their business is search. The number 1 search engine in the world is Google. The number 2 search engine in the world is actually also owned by Google. It's YouTube. So algorithms are what Google does. So as an architect, if I wanted to do some really cool machine learning AI things, chances are I would stick that in the Google Cloud. Now, if I needed big, ultimately super powerful servers, like 128 core servers, they don't have that on the Google Cloud. I might have to get them from Azure or AWS. So I might stick some of my compute on Azure, and I might stick some of my AI stuff on Google. And in the data center that we currently have, I'm not going to throw away all that. I might install an OpenStack cloud on there and let that organization be able to basically have a cloud and all the agility benefits. We've got extra servers in the data center that are idle capacity. Use them for auto scaling so we can add capacity to applications as needed. in our data center and connected to multiple clouds. We can run the workloads in our data center that need low latency, and then we can use the cloud for what it's good at: auto scaling, expandability, scalability, and transformation. So that's the difference for Annex Charter. The cloud architect is a solutions architect of every cloud, where the solutions architect only knows one cloud. So cloud architect can work anywhere because they understand cloud computing. A solutions architect can only work at the cloud that they've learned. So here's the recommendation. Don't be a solutions architect. Train to be a cloud architect, become a cloud architect. You can always work as a solutions architect. But if you study to be a solutions architect, you're going to need all kinds of training to be a cloud architect. And cloud architecture pays a lot better. And the reason the cloud architecture pays a lot better is the reality is if a company is going to hire you, if a bank is going to hire you, if a consulting firm is going to hire you, they need to know that you can deliver an end-to-end solution that's going to work for the customer, and that's going to be across multiple clouds. So for Annex Charter, that's the difference. One cloud versus the total end-to-end package. T. David, hey, good morning, Mike. You're finding most job postings say you have to have about 10 to 15 years experience. How do I get around this? T. David, all job postings say that you need 10 to 30 years experience, regardless of what they really care about. I'll tell you, my first job, they wanted 10 years experience. My second job wanted 20 years experience, and I got them both with less than a year's worth of experience. T. David, my customers get jobs every day without it. So here is the thing. Almost all job postings are based upon these HR tenets that it takes 3,000 applications at a poor performing company like a cable company to hire one person, and approximately 5,000 applications at a high performance company. So what do organizations do? They stick in a bunch of roadblocks to thin the herd. Here is the thing. Our students don't apply for jobs. We use 300 recruiters and then some. Here's what you do. First and foremost, get your portfolio straight. Get your right certifications, build your resume, T. David, build your LinkedIn profile, make it perfect on your profile. Show your leadership abilities, show your business transformation experience, show your design work that you've done. Make sure you do all of it. And then make sure you fill it in. So first, take your past jobs and try to show how your current job is the same. So T. David, for example, I used to practice medicine. I'm a nurse practitioner. Here's what I did in medicine. First thing I do is I interview a client. What brings you in today? And then after that, they say my throat hurts. So what do? I look in their throat and ask some questions. So I ask them what brings them in today. I interview the client. Then I examine their systems. I make a diagnosis and I give them a bill. What do I do as an architect? I go meet with that same client. I ask a whole bunch of questions. I baseline or examine their current technology system. So instead of their throat, I'm looking at their servers, their network, what have you. I make a diagnosis just like I did as a doctor or a nurse practitioner, same thing. And then my plan, instead of being a pill, is an architecture, meaning I write something up that says how to do it. So, these are really the kind of things. So, keep that in mind. So first and foremost, you've got to be able to show your future manager that your last job is the same as your new job. And we work with our students to teach them that because T. David, this is absolutely critical. 2, it's about getting the right certifications because the right certifications can make up for gaps in your experience. So getting only the professional certifications, not doing what I call the bad certification thing, where instead of somebody becoming a certified solution architect professional, they become a cloud practitioner, a certified solution architect associate, a SysOps associate, a DevOps associate. And then T. David, the hiring manager, looks at this and says, well, 4 associates don't equal 1 professional. 1 professional is worth like 30 associate certifications because the associate certifications are too intra-level. The second side of the problem, T. David, when people get too many of the wrong certifications is their brand becomes confused. If you've got a certified solution architect professional and a CCNP, it's expected that you know cloud networking. When you have a little DevOps, which is one career, a little SysOps, which is one career, a little this, which is another career, nobody knows what you're at, and then they can't hire you. Now, the next thing, T. David, is, and I want to make sure that you really understand this because this is super, super important. Employers care about competency, not experience. I have hired lots of people that have no experience, and my students get hired every day without experience because they require competency. So you have to be extremely good. So assuming you've got the technical competency and you built your portfolio, the next part of the process, T. David, is not just technical, it's the non-technical piece. And then I'll tell you how we tie it all together in the end. So when we interview people, 50% of the candidate score is their technical abilities, which guess what, T. David, on a brand new person, it's not enough. We're never going to get to 50 out of 50 here. We get to about 40 out of 50 with our training program, which is about 400 hours, 500 hours. Now, what we can do is we can raise the soft skills, the likability, the emotional intelligence, the leadership, the communication skills to 100 to a 50 out of 50. So our people can come in as a 90 out of 100. So that's the key. So first, we've got to make you the ideal person so that when you finally get interviewed by a hiring manager that's willing to hire you, they're there. 2, the next thing we need to do is we need to get you some real experience on your resume, the kind of experience employers care about. Now, I got to tell you, I taught an 8-year-old girl to set up an EC2 instance in 3 minutes. Nobody's going to pay you $150,000 to $350,000 or more per year to do that. They are going to pay you for the design and the transformation of the business, but you have to have experience. So here's what we do with our students, T. David, and if you train with us, you'll have the ability to put down Go Cloud Architects as an associate, and you'll be able to list all the labs that you've done. Now, that's if you're with us. If you are not with us, you can go buy a server, and I'll give you the server specs. Now, the server specs cost double what our course costs, and every one of our students does these identical labs in our course. Now, if you're with us, you can say Go Cloud Architects. If you're on your own, you'll create a research and development section in your resume, which is not as powerful as our brand, but at least it's there. So buy a server. If you're not buying our course is half the price of the server. The server needs to be at minimum, have 16 cores, Xeon server with 16 cores, a minimum of 128 gigs of RAM, and 3 SSD drives in a RAID 0 configuration or an NVMe drive. Now, when you get this server, T. David, or if you take our class, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to set up VMware ESXi. So you can say, designed and deployed VMware ESXi for enterprise-wide server virtualization. Then next, we're going to have you build some containers, and you can say design and deploying containers for enterprise-wide computing. Then after that, we would have you set up a Samba share for enterprise-wide, for file sharing with Windows systems. Then we would have you set up an NFS share so that you could deal with network file system storage. And that way you can talk about set up an NFS environment for enterprise-wide file sharing, because you need to have this. Then we would have you build the firewall, so you could say designed and deployed firewall for enterprise-wide security. Then we would have you design a VPN concentrator and build one in our lab. And then you can say built and deployed VPN concentrator for enterprise-wide remote access. And then we would have you build the LAMP stack. So set up LAMP stack for enterprise-wide web applications. After that, you know what else we'd have you do? A couple of things. The next thing we would have you do is as follows. We would have you set up Active Directory for enterprise-wide domain authentication. And then what we'd have you do, T. David, is we'd have you build a cloud. So now you've got all this stuff to build a cloud. That's what you do. And now you go to a recruiter. The recruiter now sends you directly to the hiring manager. The recruiter bypasses HR. So T. David, here's what it's like. This morning, I spoke to my favorite recruiter, Christina Moreno. I speak to her all the time because I call her for my students, and she's placed so many of my students. And here's what I do. I call and say, hey, Christina, I've got this great person, T. David. They've been in my program for about 6 months. I've seen them design an architecture. They're very emotionally intelligent, lots of business acumen, great communication skills. You put this person, T. David, in front of your customer, they will be hired. And Christina says, okay. Christina then calls one of the people she knows that has a job, speaks to the hiring manager directly, and sends T. David to the hiring manager. Now, when the hiring manager interviews T. David, if the hiring manager likes T. David, he hires them immediately, skipping HR. In fact, T. David, here's what the process will be like. The process will be as follows. They will ask you if you're going to take a position, if they offer you a job, and you're going to say yes. Then me or the hiring manager will then call human resources, and we're going to say, I am hiring T. David. I like T. David. He's a great cloud architect. He's so emotionally intelligent that I want to pay him 1.3 times the average person. That's called a comp ratio. And then what'll happen, T. David, is I'll also say, hey, now that I've interviewed and decide to hire you, would you please fill in an application, which you'll fill in. Now, a week later, I'll have the package. A week later, T. David, I'm going to call you and I'm going to say, here's the final offer. I'm going to send you some paperwork to sign. You're going to take the paperwork. You're going to take the final offer. And you know what's really going to happen? It's going to be a really great experience. You're going to be hired. Now, T. David, we trained you. You trained you. You're really, really, really great. A year later, you're promoted into a more senior cloud architect role. And good for you for doing a great job. You may get an email auto rejection from, HR a year later, after you've already been promoted. And that's going to show you that HR will auto reject you, the people that will get hired this way. So there's that. Now, T. David, I'd like to tell you one more thing. AWS constantly interviews people with zero experience for cloud architect roles every day. Lots of companies interview people with zero experience every day. Here's the thing. If you're good, they hire you. When it comes to interviews, we, the hiring managers, we don't have time for interviews. We're too busy. So we only do an interview if we think there's a chance we can hire someone. And we interview lots of people with no experience. And if that person can do the job, we hire them. If they can't do the job, we don't hire them. So kind of keep that in mind, because we get past this every time. Almost everybody that we have didn't have a tech background and they get hired. And the people that we have with a tech background get hired too. I'm going to tell you, it doesn't make a difference. The reason it doesn't make a difference is unless somebody's already been an architect, meaning they're used to the business side, the design side, the leading a group of 50 people to go build the design. It's not the job they've had. So, people do well. These are great jobs. And absolutely, you can do fantastic. And, these are the things that we're just trying to say. So don't worry about the experience thing. Worry about being so good and so capable and so likable. They can't help but to hire you, and then you'll be in great shape. T. David. Chris, if you'd like to bring in the next one.
And be careful, I will mute you.
Is there any skill that is transferable from data analytics to data architect or to architect? I have doubt if you should do AWS data analytics after architecture exam or pursue a career as an architect. You're an analytical person. So, MHG, this is an interesting one. I have some big data cloud architect people that I work with that were data architects that then moved into cloud architecture work, and they really have it. So the question becomes is, what are you doing with really data analytics? So do you desire to go down a data scientist path? And if the answer is yes, I think that's kind of great, because I do see a future in that, especially if you're already coming from a data analytics background. Because if you are, these data scientist jobs, which are so hard to get, won't be that hard for you. Now, at the same time, I would also tell you that here's how you maximize your career. Whether it's data analytics or data science or architecture. And this is a secret. Most people from the analytics side are really analytical. Great with numbers, great with statistics, great with facts and figures, really analytical. Now, what these number crunching people usually are, they're just like the engineers. Usually, not always. They're typically these super technically math-oriented, number-oriented people, and the world needs them so bad, and they're so valuable to us. Now, MHG, where the majority of these people's careers break down, and the reason these data analytics and these data scientist careers typically hit a big peak on salary very fast. Here's what we find. If you can be the person that can not only do the numbers, but explain those numbers to the business decision makers, that's that data architect. And that is a very highly paid position, meaning the person that can take all this stuff and all these numbers and make better recommendations or inferences out of it and show me why and communicate those numbers. It's great. So there's a big difference between being able to look at the data and actually making sure the executives can understand the data. That is the key to excellence in these analytics careers. Guess what the key to excellence is in your technology career? Being that one person that can translate between the world's best engineers and the executives that don't care about technology, but just know they need the technology to make their business better. So MHG, there's that. Now, what should you do? You should do what makes you happy. So if you like overall end-to-end system design, and you like communication, and you like pre-sales, etc., you are ultimately built for the architect world. And I also like the big data architect world. And these are basically cloud architects that also focus on big data design. So they know enough about cloud architecture to understand that. And then after that, they do that. And for those types, I think it's a great experience. I really do. I think it's a great experience. So there's that. So you have to do what makes you happy. So I probably wouldn't do, I probably wouldn't do an AWS data analytics exam though. I'd really get some good analytics involved. So if I wanted to do one of these big data things, I would study more about the data science world. I would learn more about those data science labs. Whenever I look at these data analytics or the AWS Advanced Networking or the AWS Advanced Security, you got to remember these certifications are very, very, very basic. And they're not going to be enough to make you a big data architect or something like that. They can help along the way, but make sure you learn a lot. So, but I have no issue with analytics. I think analytical people are great. I need one. I have one on my team, and the reason I have one on my team is I'm not one. And the one that I have on my team is really valuable because he can also tell me what the numbers mean in addition to just doing the numbers. So that's really the key. Being an analytical person is great. If you want to do data analytics, it's great. If you start learning about those machine learning tools, if that's part of it, that's great. If you want to learn how to design and architect it, how the data is created into big data environments, how these data lakes are designed, how machine learning can be run on this, how organizations can do learning, how to make better business decisions, I think it's great. So there is a lot of that. Now, is the skill from data analytics transferable to architect? All skill is transferable. If you were a management consultant, where basically you start with a client and you ask them about their business and you redesign a business process, that's the same. If you worked in customer service and you were in customer service and you were dealing with cranky customers that were calling and complaining because things weren't working, and then you got them better, again, poof, awesome. Again, that's transferable. Data analytics, you typically work with some databases. There's typically some things that, what are you looking for? There's typically some data analytics. There's typically, you've probably worked with, not that we do any of these things, but you may have made some Python or some Spark scripts or things like that. All that work that you've done with Hadoop clusters and all those other kind of things, all this stuff is valuable. Maybe you've done some work in the data analytics side with Apache Kafka, which is kind of the same as which is the industry standard solution to do things like AWS, Amazon Kinesis. So yes, a lot of it is transferable. Now, it's not as transferable as if you were a network architect or if you were a data center architect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still transferable. Learn the network, learn the data center, and you'll be good. Definitely, definitely good, but you can also be a big data architect. So become a cloud architect with a focus on big data, and then you will stand out. And that's something if you like data. Chris, if you'd like to bring in the next question. Frantic China, you're in using Black Friday now? Wonderful, Frantic China. Would love to work with you. Got to get started and get started. I look forward to seeing you in class and meeting you on Tuesday. Very forward to it. Tijo Joy, can a software developer shift to become a cloud architect? Absolutely. Here's the thing. I've got people that do it every single day. Now, it's not going to be as easy, or Tijo, if you're coming from a software background as if you were coming from a network background or a data center background, because let's be fair, the cloud is just another network and a data center. That's it. So it would be much easier. But having said that, it can still be done. So I work with a lot of people that were database admins and lots of people that were software developers. Here's what we have to do. We teach the network and the data center. We teach the business acumen. We teach the communication skills, et cetera, the leadership skills, and poof, you're there. And it's not that hard to do. So, we work with people that have had no tech background and they get hired as a cloud architect all the time. So when we're dealing with people that are coming from networking or coming from data center, it's simple because they've already been cloud architects. They just didn't know it, or at least cloud engineers. And it's taking that and then giving them the architect communication piece. Now, when we're dealing with software people, they typically have a good knowledge of computing to some degree, meaning they're pretty familiar with coding, they're pretty familiar with operating systems, they understand all the packages and package dependencies, they typically understand how a kernel works, how memory works, how CPU resources work, and how a server works. So that, huge help. Especially most good developers have some knowledge of Linux in today's environment and some databases. So yes, huge help. I'd say, it's a smaller amount of the technology than someone from a network or data center background, but absolutely can be done, and we do it all the time. I would say it takes about 4 to 6 months to get somebody hired from a software developer background in our program. It takes about 300 hours or so, 350, because you've already got a lot of tech knowledge, but it's a different kind of tech knowledge. So I'd say it's about 250 hours for somebody with a tech background, and I'd say it's about 300 to 350 hours in our training program for someone with a software development background, because we don't code as architects. But here's the thing. A lot of what we do is determine which applications can be beneficial to the organization. So that's a really critical component, is about the applications. As an architect, you know a lot about the applications and how they're put together. So that would also make you a very valuable member of the team. Remember, architecture is a team sport. There's me, I may focus on the cloud network, and somebody else focuses on the generic piece. Somebody else focuses on the security. Somebody else focuses on the big data. Some application architects or people with application backgrounds are hugely helpful, especially to people like me that are less application knowledgeable. So definitely you'll be great. And then Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. My desire is to specialize in security. Would you recommend my plan to study for solution architect, CCNP, and CISSP? Sandy, what I recommend that you do is go through first sections numbered 2 through 4 in the program, in the training portal. Make sure that they're numbered, because inside there, what I want you to do is as follows. There's a couple of questionnaires in there that ask about your desire, and and they also ask about the things you like. And then part of that actually involves going through some management consulting of yourself, like a SWOT analysis, for example, as well as also talking about your strengths and weaknesses, as well as building your plan. In that, what you'll do is you'll turn in your plan, and we'll give you feedback on the plan. Generally speaking, having said all that, for someone that desires a job as a cloud security architect, typically what we're talking about is a CISSP as well as an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. That's pretty much the majority of what we're looking for. The CCNP is always helpful. And if you don't have a tech background, it will be beneficial, because the CCNP covers networking, which is also really good. And there's usually some security with regards to everything Cisco does. Actually, there's always, so that would be a good plan. I don't know if you need the CCNP. I haven't worked with you yet, Sandy, to really know your personality right. And what I mean by that is, if you're extremely emotionally intelligent and you've got really good leadership skills and you're naturally perfect there, then I would say, yeah, get that CCNP too. Now, by comparison, if your executive presence and your communication skills and leadership skills were 5% lower, then I would say skip the CCNP and dedicate your time towards the higher value skills, which are more on the leadership side. So realistically, where my point is coming from, there's a lot of really good places for which you can be, Sandy. And I want you to be really successful. The key is finding the one that's going to make you most happy. And realistically speaking, the CISSP and the Certified Solution Architect Professional is probably pretty great. Regarding the CCNP, I'd like to actually be able to speak to you first, so I can determine your communication skills, level of leadership skills, that kind of thing. And then I can tell you which would be more valuable for you. And I'll know that after the first class on Tuesday, after I hear you speak. But in that way, I can determine whether you should focus more on the leadership piece or the business acumen piece versus the tech piece. Different levers make more sense for different people. For me, because my world is more communication and soft skills training and executive presence and emotional intelligence, those are the skills that I put a lot more effort in. But when I was younger and I was newer, I focused a lot more on the tech. And I'm going to tell you, when I focused a lot more on the tech, my career did this and then peaked. It plateaued and there was no further that it could go. And then when my manager told me about those other things, my career was like a rocket ship. So I want to see you speak first, but I would definitely say the Certified Solution Architect Professional and the CISSP is relatively good. The key with the CISSP is judging your work experience. Can you come up with something that actually looks like security? And that's the question. If not, the CCSP is a better choice, or the CEH Master is a better choice. I don't know what kind of security background you have. Now, what I mean by is looking at your background, there are a lot of jobs that involve extreme security that's not called security, and often ISC2 will accept those things. So I've dealt with some people working in some physical security. I've seen them accept it. I've seen some people doing a 2% cyber with 80% physical that they've accepted. So the key is being really, really, really accurate on what your background is when you do this. So that's the other side of it. I do generally prefer the CISSP if I can find some justification for someone and their background to use it. Oh, interesting. You heard the CISSP requires at least 5 years of working experience. So, you can take the exam. The question becomes is, how it works. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've seen thousands and thousands of people that had no experience all take the CISSP exam and pass. In fact, I remember at a time where I was working with a tech company, and the tech company said, everybody is going to become a CISSP. Everyone. And what ultimately happened is they brought in a bunch of CISSP instructors, and they held us in a room. We were like hostages for a week. We were in that room from like 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday. And then we all took the CISSP exam, and there was like a 99% pass rate. So none of us had really been security architects when we took that exam, and none of us had any security background either. But we all worked in networking, which means we all made an access list in our life. And we all did some filtering and some VLANs and some private VLANs, and that could be construed as security. And all the many thousands of us all became CISSPs. So the key is, how do you fill out that form, and what experience can you have that's justifiable? The key is you can do it. So, but you can't for everybody. So it really takes, a very vigilant look at what someone's background and experience is. But the CCSP is another one that's good, that has much, much, much less requirements in terms of time. The CEH Master has much less requirements during time. The Offensive Security Professional is also a really good one. The key is to stay away from the little small ones like the Security Plus or the Certified or the AWS Advanced Security, and fill in them with a big one. Not that there's anything wrong with the Security Plus. It's a great certification. I mean, it really is. The problem becomes is the value for the employer isn't there. So we're going to get the big, heavy ones that actually get you there. So it's not about what cert is better. It's about which ones look best on a resume. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Tyrone, always good to see you. Always thrilled to see you pop in again, even just for a few minutes. Poor Millie, how do your classes work? How many times per week? Okay, that's a great question, poor Millie. On Tuesdays from 9 a.m. Eastern time, which is 2 p.m. UK time, to noon Eastern time, which is 5 p.m. UK time, we have a class. And on Fridays from 12 to 3 Eastern time, which is 5 to 8 p.m. UK time, we also have a class. And this is a live class where we have a party. We do architecture training together. We design architectures. And these are big architectures. These aren't like little mini silly things that you would do in school. These are big, 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 powerful architectures. And on these architectural designs, we'll be working with organizations that have hundreds of thousands of remote employees, 20,000 remote locations, 40,000 subnets, what have you. Hundreds of thousands of servers, the kind of stuff that you would have if you had 5 to 10 years experience, good stuff, because I need you guys to be competent when you graduate. So twice per week, we do live training, and it's on Zoom. And it has to be on Zoom, so you can ask questions and we can have a great experience, because that's really important to us. So 2 live classes per week on Zoom. Now, in between those live classes, we've got, I think, about 300 videos that you go through. And these videos can be anything from designing a cloud to delivering a presentation to building your career plan to developing your emotional intelligence, etc. Anything that's in order, how to interview, how to negotiate a higher salary, literally anything that's going to boost your career. So in between classes, you're going to go through these homework assignments, videos, projects, and you're going to turn them in for feedback. And then in the end of that, what we're going to actually run into is you're going to do a series of labs. Now, as architects, we're not hands-on people. That's not who we are. But here's the big but. People will ask you in an interview, have you done this? And the key is you can't say no and you can't lie. So you have to have done this. So because of that, that's why we have our labs. And in our lab elements, I mean, we go deep. Employers don't care if you can set up an EC2 instance or an S3 bucket because they can train that in 2 minutes. But they care if you can migrate to a cloud, taking the stuff from the network and the data center and putting into the cloud. And unless you've done that, you're not employable. So we basically have these lab modules where you come in to our data center and our servers, and you will work with server virtualization, and you will build containers, and you'll build firewalls, and you'll build VPN concentrators. You'll set up the LAMP stack. You'll set up NFS shares. You'll set up Samba shares. You'll build firewalls, VPN concentrators for remote access. I mean, you'll set it up all. And then, if you'll build the LAMP stack for web applications, you'll set up Active Directory, and you're even going to build a cloud. So you'll be doing these things. So you can have a Go Cloud Architect section where you're an associate and you've got actual physical experience in your resume, because the experience really, really helps. So those are the 3 ways that we have classes. So we have live training twice per week. We have videos on demand and projects which students turn in via Slack, for which they get feedback throughout the week or weekend, whichever. And then there's a lab component, which is self-paced. So that's how our classes work. Our live classes are twice per week, but we expect people to do some stuff on their own almost every day. Whenever they have a chance. And it works out really well. Our students get hired every single day. If you've got more questions, poor Emily, I'd love to answer them. But hopefully I answered your question. And if you've got some questions, please feel free to answer them now. Ask them now, and I'll be thrilled to answer them. Otherwise, Chris, bring on the next question. Dorian Wright, any traveling while working as a cloud architect? Yes. And if yes, how often? So, Dorian Wright, as an architect, you will be doing a fair amount of travel. Now, it's kind of dependent upon you and the organization you work for. So as an architect, I'd say most years I traveled a few 100,000 miles a year, but that was then. And then Cisco got telepresence, which was super high definition video conferencing. And then I went from about 300,000 miles a year to about 100,000 miles a year, which I thought was a pretty big reduction in travel. And then now, as rich media conferencing gets better and the pandemic happened, people are traveling a lot less. So I would say about 20-25% of the time would be a reasonable amount to think about traveling as a cloud architect. Here's the thing, Dorian, there's so few cloud architects in the world that actually can do the job. So because of this, you're in extremely high demand. So the option to travel is there. Now, Dorian Wright, I will also tell you that if you like traveling and you're willing to go travel all the time, boy, is that something that gets you noticed by companies. I remember one year it was like really cold in New Jersey, and my employer was like, would you be willing to go to Dubai? And I was like, yeah, I can make it work. And I spent most of the winter between going to Dubai and Panama and all kinds of nice warm places. And I remember thinking, hey, this is great. And the funny thing at the end of that was I was getting promoted because people were like, oh my God, you're working so hard, you're traveling. So if you like to travel, you can definitely travel a lot more than that. But if you don't like it, you can keep it to 15 to 25% if you're really, really, really good with regards to managing your travel and using video conferencing and tools. Now, 10 years ago, I would have told you you're going to be traveling constantly. But, in today's world, you don't have to travel all the time. In today's world, 15 to 20% travel is about all you're ever going to need to do, because we've gotten so good. Zoom conferencing is amazing. Cisco's WebEx conferencing is pretty amazing. Google and Microsoft are now in there with their own conferencing platforms. There's a Zoom phone. Slack's getting involved. So there's a lot of communications and collaboration platforms, to say the least, and many more are coming. And we're now at a point where being physically there doesn't need to occur as often, and organizations are getting used to remote access. I've worked remote for 20 years now, Dorian, and we're dealing with this. So I've worked remote for 20 years, but much more of it can be remote. So Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Oh, wonderful, Frantic Charter.
There are no more.
Yes, there is. There's one from TNT Event Planning. I'll answer it. So
Uh,
TNT Event, are the Zoom classes recorded because you work during those offers? And do you offer weekend classes? TNT Event Planning, we record absolutely every single class. And what happens is people that work full time, a lot of them pop into the class for about 30 minutes. They ask some questions or something like that on a lunch break or something like that. And then they go back and watch the replay of the class. So we have lots of people that are highly successful doing it. All classes are recorded and they're placed in the section that's called weekly group coaching calls in the platform. So people do it all the time. We generally do not offer weekend classes. We are a weekday-based company. We occasionally do some specialty events over the weekend. Last weekend, about 30 of the students and I worked on a big project, one that's going to be delivered for the community, and it's going to be very helpful to the students that worked on it with us, and it's something pretty important to us. So we do occasionally on weekends do some special events and special training, but all in all, we are a weekday-based company like any business, and our classes are Tuesday and Friday, and people come in typically for the whole class, but the people that work full-time, which is about half of our students, they typically watch the replay. They typically pop in for about 15, 20 minutes to be able to ask questions, be able to get the basis, and then they watch the class. And then if they've got any questions after the class, they submit them via Slack and we answer them. So we've got lots of students that work this way, and they do extremely, extremely, extremely well. So I don't have a ton of time today. My plan was to go from 9 to 11. If there's any last questions that you want me to pop in, I'll stick around for a few more minutes. Otherwise, we'll end in about 2 minutes. So from my perspective, I love being here to answer any questions you have. I really love to help people build their best careers, and I'm really, really, really happy to see you here about it. So I will definitely say if you've got any more questions, definitely bring them. And we're real excited about that. But just to be able to talk to you, to really be out there and interact with you, it's honestly, it's such an honor. I'd like to remind everyone, happy Thanksgiving. We're coming into Thanksgiving, and it's really, really, really exciting. I'd also like to let you know that, we don't run a lot of major sales, but we do have this 35% Black Friday discount. The coupon code is Black Friday. If what's the word I'm looking for? If you desire to join our program, now is the optimal time to do it at 35% off. Given it's only 2 days, we don't have a class that's too big that it becomes problematic. Franklin Day, our students get hired very quickly. So we've got students, they attend our classes, they get hired, and we don't have a problem with too many people being in the classes. So not at all. Everybody gets plenty of time. So thank you all so much for being here. It's been a real honor. You enjoy your Thanksgivings. Remember at Thanksgiving, genetically, we're 99.9% the same as every other person in the world. And when we have our Thanksgiving meals and we get together with Thanksgiving people and people, talk about things or differences in perspective, remember, we're 99.9% the same, which means every last one of us are related, which means every last one of us are family. We are all family. So when we have our Thanksgiving and people say things, remember what matters. We're family. We're 99.9% the same. And any small differences that people have, they're not really big differences anyway. So when we get to our family and they're there and they're all doing things that could potentially be stressful, just remember, in their heart, in their mind, in their body, in their genetics, they're 99.9% the same. And that's people that we're not even related to. We're 99.9% the same. The people that you're related to, you're almost identical. So be out there, be supportive, be loving, take great care of your family. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And I can't wait to see you in another video coming very soon. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful holiday, everyone.